Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days for today's video. This will take us to around the 25th of February. We're reaching the crunch time for this easterly before month's end. Now, there is still the chance that we could get wind into the east and pull in some bitterly cold air and some heavy snow from the east. We could unleash the beast from the east, but there is, and there's always a but, isn't there, with the UK's weather when it comes to cold easterly winds. The operational runs of the GFS and the ECM are really not playing ball with this since last night and this morning as well. There's so much uncertainty starting from around the middle of next week that it's virtually unforecastable at the moment. In terms of the weather through the second half of next week and into the final weekend of February. We'll talk you through everything that's going on at the moment. We have probably taken a couple of steps back from the chance of bitterly cold easterly winds and heavy snow, but it's by no means off the table. I'll show you the reason why very shortly. So we're going to begin by having a look at what's happening in the stratosphere. Of course, been monitoring this for several days. This is how things are looking in terms of the current temperature at 10 HPA, which is one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere over the North Pole. The black line here is the trend for this time of the year. The grey line, I should say, the trend this time of year. The black line shows the temperatures for this season going back to September. We see that we are having a stratospheric warming. We know this anyway, but a warming of the stratosphere is occurring over North Pole at 10 HPA. Looks much more dramatic at 30 HPA, which is slightly lower down in the atmosphere. Again, the grey line is kind of like the 30-year average. And you can see how this black line has shot up over the past 2 or 3 days. We increased the temperature by around 40, 50 degrees in just a few days. Quite a phenomenal increase in the temperature at 30 HPA over the North Pole, and so a very significant sudden stratospheric warming has taken place at that level of the atmosphere in the stratosphere over North Pole. We have currently levelled off that warming, so we're not increasing anymore for the time being, but expect this to go up more in the next few days. This is how the GFS is forecasting temperatures at 10 HPA. So we're getting a second bout of warming occurring over the Canadian side of the Arctic. That's a very substantial and significant warming indeed. And this will move into the North Pole itself in the next 2 or 3 days. There comes those orange colours moving into the actual North Pole. And so temperatures at 10 HPA will be rising more on where they currently are. And then we're going to keep temperatures pretty warm over pole for the next few days. That is the GFS from Meteoshield.fr. This is how things are looking with the ECMWF. Again, this is looking at 10 HPA. This is how things are today. You see that we have got that second bout of very significant warming occurring over the Canadian side of the Arctic, just there, those bright red colours. That's the North Pole itself, by the way, where that black cross is. Remember, this is at the top level at 10 HPA. We go through to 96 hours, which is the 18th of February. There's a day's delay on these charts. So at 96 hours is 18th of February. You see warming, substantial warming is occurring again at 10 HPA from that warming that's going on right now on the Canadian side of the Arctic. This is how things are looking at 30 HPA, a bit lower down. So that's where we've had that very dramatic warming, of course, over the past few days, lifting this line up to here at 30 HPA, but sort of levelling off. So this is how the ECMWF is predicting things from the University of Berlin website for 30 HPA, 96 hours. And again, we still have that sort of warming levelling off a little bit at that point. But you notice another pronounced burst of warming is occurring around sort of Canada and Greenland. And as we go up to 120 hours, which is 19th of February, very warm again with those temperatures at 30 HPA. So this black line, although it has leveled off right now, I suspect it'll stay at this sort of level, may drop a little bit over the next couple of days, and then expect it to start lifting up very dramatically once again. It will either go up a scale, or they'll have to increase this scale, I think, at the JMA website for 30 HPA, because that's going to take it above sort of 30 degrees, which is as far, minus 30 degrees, which is as far as the temperature scale goes. So either they're going to have to take black line off chart, or they will have to increase the scale. But nevertheless, it is going to be a very pronounced secondary warming of the stratosphere at both 10 and 30 HPA that's coming up over the next few days. It's starting right now in the Canadian Arctic. And then we keep things generally looking quite warm with the temperatures beyond that at 30 HPA, so really dramatic developments there. We are negative with the solar winds. The solar winds have reversed. Talked about this yesterday. They're going to stay negative for the next few days. By the very end of the ECWF run, they may be starting to get back towards something a little bit more sensible. But certainly for the next week, definitely, we are going to keep a reversal of the solar winds going at 1 HPA and expect that to impact the troposphere further down the line. Let's have a look at the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. So had a look at this yesterday, and the GFS symbols predicting the Arctic Oscillation to go negative as we go through the end of February into the start of March. Dates just there. Of course, the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS symbols forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Starting really quite positive with the AO right now, tending to drop down close to neutral in the next few days. And then the GFS symbols still seeing this plunge off the cliff with the Arctic Oscillation as we go through to the end of February and into the start of March, this period just here. And up here we have got one or two outlier members of the GFS symbols that aren't taking things negative. They keep the AO going in positive territory, but they are outliers, and generally the GFS symbols are going very much towards the negative side of things with the AO. Remember, when you've got a negative Arctic Oscillation, you've got an increased risk of blocking over the North Pole. We've got an increased signal for blocking over North Pole. North Atlantic Oscillation is also being forecast to go negative. Again, this is where we start right now. We're starting positive with the NAO. GFS ensembles are forecasting in the next week the NAO sort of moves down towards a more sensible level of positivity, not going negative. In the extended range of the GFS ensembles, we do go down into negative territory with most of those GFS ensemble members. One or two keep the NAO going in positive territory. But generally, the indexes are all looking as though they're responding to this warming of the stratosphere and sort of showing the kind of things we expect to see when we get a major sudden stratospheric warming taking place. However, there has been a lot of complications overnight. Now, these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles, or upper air temperatures and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. Looking at Great Yarmouth today. Now, if we get the wind into the east, of course, places like Yarmouth will be for first places to feel and see those easterly winds. So what's happening is that the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Let's deal with what we know is going to happen over the next few days. So for the rest of this week and into the weekend, close to the 30-year temperature average starting off, and then becoming actually quite mild later in the weekend and into the start of next week. That takes us to around the 19th, 20th of February. That's 5 days out, and that's as far as we can say with confidence, because then look what happens from around this point onwards. We have a lot of uncertainty. So there are several GFS ensemble members that are going cold as early as sort of Tuesday, Wednesday next week, going down to those sort of levels However, we've got a big cluster of GFS ensemble members that are actually keeping things mild through to the end of next week. And that's this sort of period just here. So I say, from as early as around day 5, we have got a lot of uncertainty here. And then the uncertainty just increases, really, as we go beyond that. So going through the final days of February and into the start of March, this period just here, you'll notice there are many ensemble members that are very, very cold. They go down to -10, -15 even, some of these ensemble members at 850 HPA. But also we have got several ensemble members, including repeatedly the operational runs of the GFS model, which I'll show you in a moment. The operational runs are repeatedly up here with these milder, with the milder cluster of ensemble members. So from the warmest to the coldest ensemble members, which are really the coldest are down here, the warmest is probably that one up there. We've got something like a 25 degree, maybe even 30 degree temperature differential. I think it's 25 degrees temperature differential between the coldest and warmest ensemble members. The real problem is this period just here, because a couple of days ago, that was the period when most of these ensemble members were going down to a cold or even very cold level. Now you'll see that the thrust of the ensemble through this period, which is kind of like the middle of next week to the end of next week, the thrust of the ensemble is to keep things milder, although there are some of these colder outliers. And then the cold is generally being forecast for the final sort of couple of days of February and into March. Hope you're able to follow this. It's very complicated. But essentially what's happening is that it's an unforecastable period. There is too much uncertainty there to be able to say what is going to happen, and the uncertainty starts from as early as day 5. And I suspect a lot of this is down to the model trying to deal with the effects of the sudden stratospheric warming that's going on right now, has been taking place the past few days, is going to continue for the next few days over the North Pole in the stratosphere. I suspect a lot of this is down to that, although we know when we talk about Scandinavian highs and easy winds and cold weather, so there's always a lot of uncertainty associated with it for the UK anyway. Well, this time of year, it's always much more straightforward to get into an easterly, say in April or May, when the Atlantic and the polar vortex all weakens away. May tends to be a very easterly month, actually, but at this time of the year, it's always very complicated to get winds into the east. These are the surface temperature and precipitation ensembles for Great Yarmouth as well. So it looks like we're kind of flatlining at that sort of level, but that disguises the fact that there's a lot of a big range, if you like, of different temperatures. So these are the mildest ensemble members up here, these are the coldest ensemble members down there. Some of those ensemble members do include ice days as well, where temperatures are staying at or below freezing all day. Maybe it's a coastal area for the east coast as well, so that's why it's not showing particularly cold minima. If you was to come inland, you will see there are quite a few very hard overnight frosts as well with these coldest ensemble members. But again, you just get the idea that there's a big split between the GFS ensembles with the warmest and the coldest members again. Precipitation looks like this, so generally quite a dry period coming up. That is one thing that we can agree on. I think that we are going to see a pretty dry sort of end to February with a lot of high pressure influences. Temperature anomalies from the 15th to 23rd of February look like that, very close to average, maybe hinting at being a little bit above. Precipitation anomalies from the 15th to 23rd of February coming out dry of an average, backing up what I was just saying, the idea that it is going to be a dry period. We can agree on that much. So this is how the latest GFS operational run is looking. And we know this is going to be mild from what we saw with the ensembles. So we find that we've got high pressure region through the country through the start of next week. That sits over the country up to the middle of next week, and then beyond that we just keep that high pressure very close to us, maybe centred a little bit to the east. by the 24th of February, that high pressure is trying to move itself up towards Scandinavia. And so that by day 10, which is Sunday 25th February, we have actually got a Scandinavian high there, but we remain under sort of a flabby ridge, and we're not pulling in the air from the east. So the bitterly cold air, and it is very bitterly cold air, remains just to our east and to our northeast at day 10. We move a little bit beyond day 10, and again we tried to get the winds into the east, but not quite able to do so. So that's how the upper air temperatures are looking on Monday, the 26th February. Very severely cold for much of northeastern Europe, but look at this, we remain on the milder side of that blocking, with the upper air temperatures looking a lot milder. Now, as we get into extended range, the far reaches of this operational run of the GFS, eventually, what do you know, we do get the winds in to the east of the Scandinavian high, finally takes over the battle. The upper air temperatures aren't quite as severely cold by this point, Saturday the 3rd of March, but we are beginning to turn the wind into the east then and setting up a cold block pattern. But of course, that's much, much later than the GFS was showing us going cold with those easterly winds just a couple of days ago. Just a couple of days ago, the GFS wanted to turn us cold with these easterly winds around the 22nd to the 25th of February. Now, it's not until the start of March. So these easy winds and the cold weather is not getting any closer with the GFS operational runs. But again, I'll just go back to that graph, because the green line there is that GFS operational run, that one just there. You can see it was right at the top end of the warmest members, and keep in mind that at the same time period, you've got all of these very cold GFS ensemble members. So most of the ensemble members actually are colder than the operational run at this point. ECMWF, though, is not any help if you want cold weather, because that is also churning out one after another mild operational. So again, this is the operational run of the ECMWF from this morning. We start on Monday, and we're relatively mild through the early part of next week. And then in the second half of next week, a little bit bizarrely, because no other model is showing this, the Atlantic actually starts to come back. So it turns much more unsettled, and that's how we go up to day 10. That is day 10, which is Sunday the 25th of February, when we're actually looking very mild. There's no sign of easy winds whatsoever. We've got a ridge sort of across central southern Europe, and they've got low pressure out to the northwest, and we're bringing up a very mild southwesterly winds. And that is very much a mild outlier as well, but it's totally at odds with what the GFS show. And they are both mild by day 10, or they are both still mild at day 10, but they're doing it in very, very different ways. So that is the ECMWF day 10 chart. Let's just go back to the GFS day 10 chart, which is that one. And, well, they're completely, there's no comparison between the pattern that's delivering the mild temperatures that we would have on both scenarios at that time point. So, again, that just compounds all of the uncertainty. This is for GEM, the Canadian model, and we start next week with high pressure close to the country. Now look what this one does. Very quickly through next week, it manages to get that high pressure over Scandinavia. So by as early as Friday the 23rd of February, next Friday, we do have the wind turning into the east, and then we go off and running into a very cold easterly wind for this final weekend. For the final weekend of February. Here's the upper air temperature showing bitterly cold air and probably heavy snow flooding the country from the east. So the GEM is still really going for these easterly winds, as is the UK Met Office's own model. So this is Monday, high pressure dominating. By Tuesday, look at that, as early as Tuesday, we've got that high pressure over Scandinavia, and we've got the wind into the east. So as I say, as early as sort of just 4 or 5 days away, or 5 days away, we have a huge amount of uncertainty here. Quite remarkable. And that's how we finish up. You know, you go to 144 hours with the UK Met Office model. It doesn't go to extended range. So it finishes at 144 hours, which is Wednesday the 21st of February, and we're in a bitterly cold easterly wind there, and we will be bringing in snow showers across many southern and eastern parts of the country. So on the GFS ensemble, that operational UK Met Office run would be among that sort of cluster there for like the middle of next week. So, I mean, it's just a remarkable period of uncertainty that we've got at the moment. Just finishing with the built ensembles, just to show you that the red line here is the operational ECMWF, and that was very much a mild outlier. I wouldn't necessarily say an outlier, actually, because there are a few ensemble members that are in agreement. Very similar to the GFS operationals, really. There are a few ensemble members within the ECMWF ensembles that are with the operational and have a very mild outlook by day 10. But most of them actually are on the colder side of things. And you'll see that again, there are some very cold ensemble members here for the built in Holland, with many ensemble members going down by the weekend of 24th, 25th February, going down below -5. Some of them even going as low as -10. The confusion, I think, is not so much what's happening with the ensembles, where you often get a split. It's why the operational GFS and ECMWF runs are constantly churning out milder sort of operational runs. So we know there's this split within both ensemble suites, the GFS and the ECMWF, and you would expect that at least sometimes we would be getting colder operational runs of the GFS and the ECMWF with those colder members of their ensembles, if you see what I mean. But run after run after run, these two operational models, the GFS and the ECM, are constantly churning out mild operational runs, which is causing a bit of concern, really, because they are run at a higher resolution compared to their ensembles. We have seen this a few times, not just this winter, but also last winter, that we would get the operational, we would get the ensembles, I should say, trying to bring us into cold weather, but the operationals never really go for it. And in the end, it's the operationals, it turns out it's the operational runs that are leading the ensembles rather than the ensembles leading the operations, which is usually the way it works, actually. We tend to take, in weather forecasts, we tend to take ensemble data a little bit more seriously than individual operational runs. But sometimes, especially in these block Scandinavian high easterly scenarios, it does appear that it's the operationals that lead the ensembles. So that's just causing quite a lot of concern at the moment. I certainly won't be discounting the chance of a very, very cold easy wind and a lot of snow before this February is done with us, and before this winter is done with us. But I think we need to start seeing the ECM and the GFS operationals starting to move back towards those colder solutions that we have within their ensemble suite. So that's what I'm going to be looking for with tonight's operational runs and ensembles model updates tonight, and also tomorrow morning. And obviously we'll be keeping you updated about this at Gaz Webbins in the coming videos, so do keep checking back to the website for more. Really complicated stuff, so I hope you are able to follow it, and I suspect there are going to be more twists and turns before this is all resolved. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.